In this video, I will show you how to factor by taking out the greatest common factor, or GCF. This is the second video. In the first video, we did number 1 through 8. And in this video, we'll get a little bit more advanced and we'll start to deal with some problems that have multiple variables and larger numbers. Number 9, do all of the terms have variables? No, 24 has no variables, so there will be no variable in the GCF. Now look at the numbers. What's the biggest number that divides into all of these? Well, it looks like they are all divisible by 4. That's probably the biggest, so I'm going to use that as my common factor, and if I'm wrong, then the numbers inside will still be divisible by something, and we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. So for now, let's go ahead and assume that 4 is the GCF. Let's divide everything by 4. And so that's going to leave us with 5k squared plus 7k plus 6. Now, 5, 7, 6. Is there anything that goes into all three of these? No. That tells me that 4 was, in fact, the greatest common factor, so we're done. All right, number 10 has a little bit more going on. First of all of the terms have variables, so that tells me there will be a variable in my GCF. But also, these are not in descending exponential order. So I really need to rewrite this. So the highest power is the 6, so I really need to go 36m to the 6th power. And then next comes negative 60m to the 4th power. And then finally, plus 42m to the 3rd power. Got to rewrite it. Now, the smallest amount of variables is m to the 3rd power. So that's how many m's will be in the GCF. So I know that I'm going to have m to the 3rd power out front. Okay, now look at the numerical part, 36, 60, and 42. Okay, I'm trying to think to myself what's the biggest number that divides into all of these. And the first thing that pops into my head is the number 6. I can see that these are all going to be divisible by 6. I don't actually know if that's the biggest number, but I'm going to try it. And if I'm wrong, if 6 is not the greatest common factor, then whatever is inside of the parentheses, the numbers will still be divisible by something. And then I can finally show you what to do about that. But for now, let's try 6m to the 3rd power. So I'm going to divide everything by 6m to the 3rd power. You know what? I feel like I need to leave myself more space. Okay, so just my 6m to the 3rd power. Okay, so this is going to give me 6m to the 3rd power. Again, I'm subtracting 6 minus 3. And this is going to give me 10, all right, m, subtracting. And this is going to give me 7, all right. The m to the 3rd power just cancels out, so I just get 7. Now, 6, 10, and 7. Is there anything that will divide into all three of these? No, 7 is a prime number. So that means I chose correctly, and 6m to the 3rd power is the greatest common factor. So that's it. All right, number 11, pretty fancy. We have x's and y's. There's a negative number in front. Let's see what happens. Let's see. Do all of the terms have variables? Yes. However, look at the the last term. The only variable is x. All right, so that means x is the only variable that they all have in common. They don't all have y's. They all have x's. So that tells me that there will be an x in the common factor. Now, look at the numbers, 28, 12, and 12. Okay, 12 itself does not go into 28. Now, numbers that go into 12 are 2, 3, 4, and 6. Which of those go into 28? 2. 4. 4 goes into 28. Okay, 3 does not go into 28. 6 doesn't go into 28. So 4 is going to be the greatest common factor there. Now, because the leading coefficient is negative, I'm going to go ahead and include the negative in my GCF. So I'm going to divide all of these by negative 4x. Negative 4x. Negative 4x. And that will show me what goes on the inside. Okay, a negative divided by a negative is a positive, so this will be positive 7. The x's cancel each other out, so that's just going to leave y to the 4th power. A negative divided by a negative is a positive, so this will be positive 3. The x's cancel out, and that's going to leave y squared. Negative divided by a negative is a positive, so that's going to be positive 3. The x's cancel out. All right, now I take one more glance, 7, 3, 3. Is there any number that will divide into all three of these? No. So this is the final answer. Sometimes I rewrite things in descending exponential order, but when I have a combination of multiple variables, like here I have x's and y's, then I generally don't bother rearranging anything. So I'm just going to leave it the way it is, even though this is y squared over here. Because I have x's and y's, it's not the same. Now, look at the variables. What variable do all of the terms have in common? Do they all have x's? No. These last two terms have no x's. Do they all have y's? Yes. Okay, they all have y's. Now the first two terms only have one y. So that's this smaller amount. So that's how many y's I can bring out. So the greatest common factor will include y. Now look at the numbers, 16, 8, and 12. What's the biggest number that divides into all of these? Well, let's start with the smallest number, 8. That's divisible by 8 itself. 8 goes into 16. 8 does not go into 12. Let's see, what else? 8 is divisible by 4. 4 goes into 16. 4 goes into 12. So that tells me that 4 is going to be the greatest common factor. So I'm going to go ahead and divide everything by my GCF of 4y. And that will tell me what goes inside the parentheses. So 16 divided by 4 is 4. The y's cancel out. That leaves x. 8 divided by 4 is 2, so plus 2. The y's cancel out. Okay, 12 divided by 4 is 3. And this y is going to cancel out one of these y's, but it's still going to leave a y. So this is the answer to number 12. All right, number 13. Are all of these, do all of these terms have a variable in them? No, 63, no variables. So there will be no variables in my GCF. Now look at the number part. I always like to start with the smaller number, 36. So think about the numbers that divide evenly into 36. Other than 36 itself, which definitely does not go into 54, for example, What else? I believe 18 goes into 36. I don't think 18 goes into 54, for example. So let's go smaller. What else goes into 36? 36 is divisible by 9. Now, does 9 go into all of these? 54 is 6 times 9, and 63 is 9 times 7. Okay, so all of these are divisible by 9. So I think that is going to be our GCF. So let's go ahead and divide everything by 9 and see what we get. Okay, so I'm going to put that 9 out in the front. So that's going to give us 6y to the 4th power minus 4xy minus 4x plus 7. Okay, so that is going to be the answer to number 13. All right, looking at number 14, start with the variables. Every term has variables. Now let's take it one variable at a time because I see u and v. Okay, so looking at u, all right, I see we have u squared, u. All right, what's the smallest amount of u's in any term? Well, some of these terms only have one u. So that's how many u's I can put in the GCF. It has to be the smallest amount. So there's going to be one u in that GCF. Okay, now look at the v's. All right, I've got v to the 6th power, v to the 5th power, v squared, v squared. What's the smallest amount of v's? V squared is the smallest amount. Every term has at least 2 v's. So that's how many v's I can pull out. So v squared is going to be in the GCF. Okay, now let's look at the number part. What's the biggest number that divides into everything? Well, start with the smallest number, 4. Does 4 itself go into all of these numbers? It does. So that means that 4 is definitely going to be the GCF of the number part. So that means we're going to divide everything by 4uv squared. Okay, 4uv squared, 4uv squared, 4uv squared. And we're going to see what's left. Okay, 40 divided by 4 is 10. The u's are going to cancel out. And here we subtract 6 minus 2. So this will be v to the 4th power. All right, these 4's cancel out. The u's cancel out. And 5 minus 2 is 3. So this will be u to the 3rd power. 28 divided by 4 is 7. Okay, the u's, 2 minus 1 is 1. So there will be 1 u left. The v squareds cancel each other out. 36 divided by 4 is 9. The u's cancel out and the v squares cancel out. So it'll just be 9. So this is the answer to number 14. Notice that if you do this right, not only should there be no number that divides into all of the remaining numbers, but when you're finished, there shouldn't be variables on all the terms anymore. All right? Make sure that there are not v's on all the terms inside. Make sure that all of the terms inside don't have u's on them. Okay, number 15. We have x's and y's. So let's see. Do all of the terms have x's? Yes, every term has x's. What's the smallest amount? Well, some of these terms only have one x. So that means I only get to pull out one x in the common factor. Do all of the terms have y's? No, these terms have y's, but there are two terms that have no y's at all. So I can't pull out any y's. So there will be no y's in the GCF. Now look at the number part. I'm looking for the biggest number that divides into these four numbers. Let's see. Let's start with the smallest number, 63. Let's think about the numbers that divide evenly into 63. Okay? So I know that 63 is 9 times 7, for example. And I also know that 9 is 3 times 3. Okay? So here are several numbers that divide into 63. I know that 9 goes into 63, 7 goes into 63, 3 goes into 63. Okay? So let's start with 9. Does 9 divide into these other numbers? Yes, it does. 9 goes into 72 and 90, and there's another 72. So 9 is going to be the greatest common factor of the numbers. So let's go ahead and divide everything by 9x. All right, divide everything by your GCF. Now, if you make a mistake, if it turns out that 9 was not the biggest number, we will find out, because that means inside of the parentheses, there will still be a number that you can divide everything by. Okay, now 72 divided by 9 is 8. So that's going to be 8, and then x to the 4th power after you cancel these out. 90 divided by 9 is 10. Okay, these x's cancel each other out, so it'll be 10y to the 3rd power. Again, 72 divided by 9 is 8. The x's cancel out, and you have y squared. 63 divided by 9 is 7, and the x's cancel each other out. Now glance over these numbers, 8, 10, 8, 7. Is there anything that divides into all? No, 7 is a prime number. So that means we chose wisely, and this is the final answer. All right, number 16. I see variables all over the place. Does every term have an x? No. There are a couple of terms that have no x's. That means that x will not be a part of the greatest common factor. Does every term have a y? Yes, all of the terms have y's. Now, what's the smallest amount of y's? I see 7, 6, 5, 5. 5 is the smallest amount. That's why y to the 5th power will be in the GCF, the greatest common factor. Now, let's look at the numerical part. 20, 28, 24, 32. I'm looking for the biggest number that divides evenly into all of these. So let's focus on the smallest number, 20. Okay, here are some things that divide evenly into 20. Other than 20 itself, 20 is divisible by 10. Let's see, 20 is 4 times 5, so that means it's divisible by 5 and 4. Okay, I think these are the three biggest numbers that are divisible by 20. Now, 20 itself does not divide evenly into, 32, for example. How about 10? 10 does not go into 32, for example. How about 5? All right, 5 doesn't go into 32 either. All right, how about 4? 4 goes into 32, 4 goes into 24, 4 goes into 28. 4 goes into everything. So that tells me that 4 is going to be part of the greatest common factor. Because of the leading coefficient here is negative, I'm going to go ahead and include negative as part of my GCF. Okay, so my greatest common factor is negative 4y to the 5th power. So let's divide everything by that. right? And that will tell me what goes on the inside. Negative divided by a negative is a positive, so this will be positive 5. Here we're subtracting, so this will be y squared. And then we still have the little x there. Don't forget the x. So y squared x. All right, positive divided by a negative is a negative, negative 7. Subtracting, we'll just have plain y. Negative divided by a negative is a positive, so positive 6. Y to the 5th power just cancels completely out. We still have that x there. Negative divided by a negative is a positive, so this will be positive 8. And y to the 5th power cancels completely out. Okay, so this should be the final answer. Alright guys, that's going to do it for this video. Go ahead and click here in the red apple to watch the next video. Click in the green apple to subscribe, or click the yellow apple for the full playlist.